All right. Hi, everyone. I hope you're doing well out there today. I am Sarah Higgins. I'm the Member Education and Events Director for the New York State Restaurant Association. Thanks for joining us today. I'm here with Chip Klose, a restaurant expert and coach and a podcaster, and he actually also spoke at our Leadership and Operations Symposium. So he's a jack of all trades when it comes to restaurants. And he's going to talk today about how to market your restaurant the right way. As always, we're recording the presentation, and NYSER members will be able to view the recording by logging into our website. If you have any questions about that, you can email info@nyser.org. And if you have questions along the way, you can pop them into the Q&A box, and we will take care of those at the end of the presentation. So I won't talk anymore, but I'll turn it over to Chip. Chip, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it. To everybody who is logged in and watching this in real time, appreciate it. To anybody who watches this later on, I appreciate all of you. You can find me through Sarah. She can put you in touch with me if there's any questions you have at the end of this. By all means, I'm happy to clarify anything. And for those of you who are here, like Sarah said, just throw the stuff in the chat and we can get to that. I'm going to share my screen here so we can take a look at the deck. Hopefully you guys are all seeing that now. So yeah, this is a conversation about marketing. Specifically, I'm going to share with you a 5-step framework for, it says here, for marketing restaurants the right way. If there's a right way, that must mean that there's a wrong way. I believe there is a wrong way. I think a lot of the ways that we approach marketing restaurants is flawed. And I want to give you something easier to digest, easier to understand, easier to take action on, so you don't have to feel like you just got to do what everybody else is doing. And so we'll outline sort of what we mean by wrong and what we mean by right as we go along here. So let me just figure out how to flip the page. Guess we'll just scroll down here. Okay, so as we go through here, first things first, who am I? Like Sarah said, I am a restaurant coach. I am a podcast host of the Restaurant Strategy Podcast. I'm an author of The Restaurant Marketing Mindset. It's a book that just came out in October of this year, so just a couple of months ago. I'm really proud of that. I've spent my entire adult life working with restaurants, primarily here in New York City. I spent the great deal of my career, 20 years in New York City, working, opening, and running Michelin-starred restaurants. So I've got 13 Michelin stars on my resume. I've worked with 3 different James Beard Award winners. I opened a Relais and Chateau property in upstate New York for the actor Richard Gere, of all people. I'm sure I have another book in me all about that experience. If you're curious, I will write it one day, maybe. In any event, I've been doing this for a very, very long time. Ton of operational experience. I made through the heart of my career, I really made a name for myself, opening restaurants, running restaurants. Then I'd go over and open a restaurant, run it, open it, run it, open, run it. That's what I did. About 8 years ago, I switched out of operations, became really interested in marketing. I started consulting for restaurants all over the city. That eventually grew to beyond the city. I realized I wanted to go back to school, went back, I got my MBA. I sort of have all of that to back up what I'm talking about. St. Joe's University in Philadelphia does an MBA in food marketing, which seems right up my alley. It's the only program like it in the world. So I've got my MBA there, graduated top of my class. And now I coach. I coach restaurant owners all over the world through my program. It's called the P3 Mastermind. Specifically, that one's catered towards profitability, helping restaurant owners learn how to better deal with their budgets and forecasts and all of that. All different ways that I work with the restaurant industry to help us do what we do better. What we do is extraordinary. Not everyone could do it. Not everyone does it well. And I think we deserve to be rewarded for it. I think we work way too hard to not make money doing it. That's sort of my mission, to help restaurant owners and operators, specifically independent owners and operators, be more successful, run more profitable businesses. So that's me. Spent a great deal of time in this industry, thinking, eating, sleeping, breathing, everything about this industry. So that's me. Before we talk about the wrong way to market and the right way to market, let's agree on a definition for marketing, right? What is marketing? If you read the textbook definition, nobody understands it. I could read it to you, you'd fall asleep. So for me, if there's anything I'm good at, or I feel like there's anything that I've got a knack for, it's taking complicated ideas or ideas that are out there and sort of ephemeral and distilling them down and making them simpler, easier to understand. Because if we can't understand it, we certainly can't put it into practice. So let's really talk about what marketing is. A lot of times when we talk about marketing, we talk about some of the stuff that's included in marketing, but we don't get a really clear, concise answer. So I'm going to give you a really clear, concise definition that I hope will just ring in your ear. That'll be like a mantra over and over and over. So what is marketing? It's just 3 questions. Before we get to that, we're going to talk about what marketing is not, right? What is not marketing? This is not marketing. This, websites, SEO, emails, that's not marketing. These, in-store collateral, table tents, flyers, postcards, business cards, that's not marketing. None of that is marketing. All of those are tools available to the marketer, but that is not marketing. Marketing is not the stuff we do. Marketing is much more foundational than that, and that's what we're going to get to, right? So now, what is marketing? It's answered in 3 questions. What's the product? Who is it for? And how do you reach them? So that's it. What is marketing? The definition is just 3 questions. What's our product? Who's that product for? And how can you reach them? That's the mantra you're going to repeat over and over and over again. So Facebook and Instagram and SEO and our website and our email marketing strategy and our ads and our direct mailers and all of that, that's all great. Those are tools available to the marketer. But what happens is that when we jump right over to the tools, we skip over the first 2 parts. Now look at the 3-part question. What's the product? Who is it for? How do you reach them? We reach them through our social media, through our direct advertising, through our mailers, through our whatever. But unless we understand what our product is and who that product is for, we can't possibly use the tools to their fullest. And we can't be intentional and efficient with the money that we spend and the time and the other resources that we spend doing it. So that's what we're going to spend time on first, is those first 2 questions. And then I'm going to give you a really good framework for understanding that third, right? So what's the product? Who is it for? We first have to understand that. That's the foundation for everything we do. And then how do you reach them? Those are the tools. We have to understand what tools we use and for what purposes. And I'm going to give you a really easy way to think about that. Cool. Struggling versus failure, right? So there's the statistics that we hear, right? 80% of all restaurants fail in their first 5 years. But the even more difficult statistic to understand is on the backside of that, right? Which is that of those that survive, 80% will never make more than about 5 or 6% profit on average every year. Those are numbers straight from, I think they're backed up from National Restaurant Association, and 7 Rooms put out something similar, and Toast put out a similar research and all of that, right? So when we talk about our industry, let's make sure we understand struggling is different than failing, right? So really what I want to zero in on now, right? When we talk about struggling, that's understanding really good fiscal management, really understanding how we target revenue, how we manage our expenses to do that. But when a restaurant really struggles so much that they are failing, where they fail to grab hold in their market, to grab an audience, to get enough people to walk in the door, that's that other piece. That's the marketing piece that we really have to understand. And a lot of times restaurants fail in those first 5 years because they don't understand who their product is for, and they don't understand what their audience needs. So the 5-step framework I'm going to introduce you to here, right, how to market restaurants the right way, is called the ABCDs of marketing. So I wrote about this in my book. It's actually the first part of my book, and we go into much greater depth, but this is a really great overview for it. The ABCDs of marketing. It stands for audience, brand, competition, and differentiation, right? Those are really important to understand, and we're going to dig in to each of those 4 areas. A, B, C, D. Audience, brand, competition, and differentiation. Really, this is a framework to better understand who your product is for and how your product makes their lives better. In this case, your product is the experience you provide at your restaurant, right? That's what we're selling. in the restaurant industry. We're selling experiences. So let's start off here. A is for audience. The audience is the who in the equation, right? Too often, right, there's two ways to market, right? So typically, we either come up with a product and then go try to find customers for that product, or we do it in reverse order, which is what the best companies in the world, not just the best restaurants, but the best companies in the world do it in reverse order. They go figure out an audience, a group of people that have a problem, and they craft a solution to that problem. So we can either create a product, go find a customer, or find a customers who need something and craft a product for them. That's overly simplistic. And I said this at the beginning. It's something that I spend a lot of time doing, just boiling it down, distilling it down to its simplest part. There's two ways to market. The first way is what we do most of the time. That's where we get that Field of Dreams effect, right? If you remember Field of Dreams, 1989 movie with Kevin Costner. He hears a voice telling him, if you build it, they will come, right? And I think a lot of times that's where we go wrong in the restaurant industry. We think, my food's so good, everybody loves my food, I'm going to create a really beautiful restaurant, and I'm going to open up the doors, and of course they'll come. And once they come, they'll taste my food, and of course they'll tell everybody, and they'll come back. And if we build it, they will come. As long as I build it and I cook great food, of course they're going to come and try it, and they're going to come back, and they're going to tell people. Those people are going to come, and they'll come back, and they'll tell people, and on and on. And in a perfect world, yes, but that very, very rarely happens, right? It's that old statement of, oh, he's a 10-year overnight success. It takes a long time and lots of deliberate effort to get to what feels very effortless. Two ways to market. We come up with a product and go find customers. That's the way most restaurants do it, and they fail because of it. Or the best restaurants and really the best companies look around and say, what do people need? What do the people in this neighborhood need? What does this demographic need? What does this group of people need that I'm uniquely qualified to provide them with? So audience is where we begin. We have to understand who has a problem that we can solve. Who has a problem that we're uniquely qualified to solve, right? That's this question, right? Who has the problem? You've got to get really good. This has to do with empathy. Empathy is about putting yourself in another person's shoes, right? Seeing the world that they as they see it, right? Walking a mile to see what it feels like to walk a mile as them. We get better at business, right? We become better business people. We get better at understanding our people, because unlike when we come up with a product and then have to go keep tapping people on the shoulder and say, come try, come try, come try. The opposite happens when we know that somebody has a problem. We know that we've got a really compelling solution. We just tap them on the shoulder and say, hey, you know that problem you have? I've got a really great solution. That's what we want to be able to do, right? Now, bunch of different ways that we can do this, right? When we look at, right, so segment the population to identify a target audience. This is about as textbook as I'm going to get. But when we, as marketers, first thing we do is look at a population. So in New York City, it's a city of roughly 8 million people, right? The population is everybody. Population is all 8 million people in that market, right? But there's no way for me to market a sports bar in Brooklyn to everybody in the 5 boroughs. People from Staten Island aren't going to be able to get there easily. People in the Bronx are not going to take the train, 2 trains all the way down to Brooklyn. It's probably even going to be hard to get, Queens people out to Brooklyn. And we all know that nobody who lives in Manhattan ever leaves the island. So immediately, right, there's a whole bunch of people who can't easily get to me. They're not going to come to me. It's a bunch of people that can't afford to eat at my restaurant because they don't eat out much, right? That's not the money they have. Or they don't like my food, right? So they're not going to come out there, right? So people can't get to me, can't afford me, don't like me. Immediately, we start segmenting the population really easily, right? Most of the people in that market of New York City will never come to me. And that's great news, because we figure out who our product is for by first figuring out who it is not for. We do that by segmenting the population, figuring out who is actually there to be served. A couple different ways we can segment the population. First way is demographically, right? Demographics are the outward appearances, right? Age, race, gender, education level, income level, things like that, outward appearances. It's not always the most beneficial way to begin segmenting, but it is a way. For example, if we're going to open our sports bar, I think we'd all agree that if we had to split things up demographically, we're probably going to cater more towards men than women. Not that women won't have a great time, not that women won't go there. They will. But I think we'd agree that most sports bars cater to men. Unless you say, no, we're gonna take a really cool position and we are going to create a sports bar for women, which I don't know of many, and that would be great. In New York City, they've got a place called Boxers. It's a gay sports bar, right? Because there are plenty of people in the gay community that also love sports. And so they created a gay sports bar. It's a very niche, very unique place, but the place is packed. They make money hand over fist, right? It's one way to begin doing it, to look at our world demographically. Again, it's not the most beneficial, but we can begin that. So let's say we take the sports bar, which we were going to put in Brooklyn. Let's pick it up, and for the purposes of this thought experiment, we plop it down in a college town like Ann Arbor, right? Ann Arbor, Michigan, where the University of Michigan is. So we plop that down. We've got a decision to make. So we say, okay, we're gonna make this a sports bar. We're gonna cater towards men. But then in a sports in a college town like that, we've got two different demographics there of men. We've got, let's call them the haves and the have-nots. So the haves are the faculty, the administrators, the parents, the alumni, the people who come in for the games, right? These are adults with jobs who have money. And then the have-nots are the students. The students do not have a lot of money. When we open our sports bar in Ann Arbor, I think we're going to have to decide whether we want to cater to the haves or the have-nots. That will dictate whether we serve, let's say, $2 pints of Bud Light for the kids, or we serve $10, $12 cans of craft IPA, right? They're totally different groups. And one group is not going to go to the other one, right? Some really sort of dingy, loud, energetic place that sells $2 drafts is not going to bring a bunch of teachers there. It's going to be a bunch of kids, right? Likewise, the other place where we've got sort of an upscale sports bar model with $10, $12 cans of beer, the kids aren't really going to be able to afford it, nor are they going to want to be in that sort of environment. So when we talk about demographics, there are a bunch of different ways we can split up to help us do our job better, which is to segment, figure out who we want to serve. Right. The next way we segment the population, right? Demographics and then psychographics. So if demographics tell us a little bit more about who these people are, psychographics is about understanding what they believe. So this is their ambitions, their aspirations, their fears, right? So to take that example of the sports bar in Ann Arbor, we're going to cater towards men. We're going to cater towards the haves, right? The staff, the faculty, the administration, the parents, the boosters, the alumni, those people who come in on game day. Okay, that's who we're going to cater towards. But now, not everyone who has money sees the value of a $12 beer. There are people who would gladly spend money on scotch, gladly spend money on wine, gladly spend money on great cocktails, but they don't like beer, or they don't see beer as being an upscale product. So they're not going to spend $12 for a can. They can go buy and spend $12 for a six-pack down the street. So we have to find people who are men, who are in the haves community, but people who believe what we believe. So believe that craft IPA is to be celebrated and is worthy of paying extra for, right? That's who we have to cater to, psychographically speaking, as we continue to segment our audience. So we keep going down further, right? So again, we segment further: demographics, psychographics, geography. Geography plays a huge role in how we market. Understanding where people are in relation to our restaurant. So again, upscale sports bar in Ann Arbor, Michigan. There are a bunch of haves who like craft beer on faculty and the administration. Those are nearby. We could run radio ads. We could put bus stop ads. We could send direct mailers to the people in our community in town, and we could reach them just fine. But then we've got the parents, we've got the alumni, the boosters, people who probably live elsewhere outside of Ann Arbor, and they just travel in for game day. They just travel in for homecoming or parents' weekend. We have to reach them a totally different way than we would the people who live in town, the people who work at the university. When we think about that, that changes how we might market to them. So this is that, again, the three questions, right? What's the product? Who is it for? How do we reach them? Now, by understanding who these people are, it will inform the ways in which we reach them. And I hope that makes sense. And the last way we segment the population is by behavior. Understanding how our restaurant fits in or might fit in with their lives. Behavior has a lot to do with discretionary income and free time. Where do they spend their discretionary income? What kind of free time do they have? What do they do with their free time? Meaning, what are the restaurants that they go to, or what else do they do for fun? Because we know restaurant budget does not come out of the grocery budget. It comes out of the entertainment budget, right? Groceries are groceries. That's a line item on a family's budget. But restaurants really are a form of entertainment, and we've seen that over and over and over again. So understanding what they do with their free time, what they do with their discretionary income, meaning do they travel? Do they play sports? What else do? They go to the theater, they go to the movies, they go to other restaurants. Understanding that, again, will help us understand how this restaurant, how our restaurant will fit in with their lives. That's true for any restaurant, any concept, anywhere in the world. That's different for a fine dining restaurant in the heart of Manhattan. It's different for a bagel shop in, outside of Albany. As we get major market, mid-market, and then rural or suburban, and then rural areas, it's different for everybody. Understanding how people might get to us or how we fit into their lives is huge. Here's our 4 ways that we can begin to segment the population, and it just helps us to better understand who we're trying to serve, or what we call our target audience. Who has a problem that we are uniquely qualified to solve? When we start doing that, that's when we start becoming really successful. Really what we're trying to do is we're trying to drive towards their pain point, right? These parents always come in to visit their kid in Ann Arbor on Parents' Weekend, and there's no really great place to watch the game that's not loud and energetic, that's packed with kids bumping into them. Maybe our place, our upscale sports bar, will solve their pain, that specific pain point. Hey, I want to come in, I want to be with my son for Parents' Weekend, but I don't want to be in some dingy college bar. I really want to go somewhere nice. Well, we've created a place that caters to their pain point, right? To the faculty, the administrators, the professors who are there, right? They want a really great place to watch the game, but they don't want to be around all the kids that they teach all week long. They want their own place. Maybe we've just created that place. We create that place by understanding their pain point. We would communicate that to them in all of our marketing channels, which we will get to later, right? It begins by understanding who we're trying to solve, what their problem is, what their pain point is. And of course, that takes us to the next part, right? So A leads to B. A is for audience, B is for brand. Your brand, your restaurant is the solution to someone's problem, right? We have to, once we identify a problem, or we identify a group of people that have a problem, well, now we say, how can we solve that? Again, how am I uniquely qualified to solve this problem? Right? That leads us to C. C is for competition. Your competitors, right? The way to think about them is to say, again, who has a problem that I'm uniquely qualified to solve? What's the solution I'm crafting to that problem? My restaurant, my upscale sports bar in Ann Arbor. And then you look around and say, great, who else is trying to solve the same problem that we are? Those are your competitors, the people who are trying to solve the problem, right? The power of competitors, power of competition, is that it gives you 2 important things. Number 1, it validates your idea. And number 2, it gives you a category. Let's take a minute on each of those. Validating your idea is very good for our psyche, right? We say, hey, this group of people in Ann Arbor, right? The parents, the alumni, the professors, I think they need a really cool upscale sports bar, somewhere where they can watch the game, but be separate from the kids and have a really nice grown-up meal, right? And you look around and say, hey, there's other places also that are sort of doing that. It shows you, hey, I'm not crazy. I'm not crazy. I thought this group of people had a problem, and they also saw that problem. I'm not crazy. And now what we have to do is we have to separate ourselves from the competitors, right? Because now you're in a category. Just like if you open a sushi restaurant, you're going to be in a category with other sushi restaurants. You open a Mexican restaurant, you're going to be in a category of other Mexican restaurants. Or let's say you open a Mexican restaurant in Park Slope, Brooklyn, and on your block, there are 5 other restaurants. Yep, you're in a category with other Mexican restaurants, maybe in all of Park Slope, but you're in a category of neighborhood eats in that one block on Fifth Avenue, let's say, right? Because the people nearby, they want food. They don't really care what cuisine. They just want something nearby. And they're deciding between the sushi restaurant, the Mexican restaurant, Chinese restaurant, and the Greek place, right? So now you're in 2 categories. You're in a category in a broader radius with other Mexican restaurants, and then just on this block with other restaurants on this block. Depending what your person, what your diner needs, they're going to think of you in one category or another. Categories, as it turns out, is a really good thing because you're on a short list, right? So if somebody says, oh, I just want something easy, let's just go downstairs. Okay, what are you in the mood for? Immediately, the couple who's sitting upstairs in their apartment thinks of the 5 restaurants that are right outside. They just want to go down the stairs, around the corner, and eat at one of those 5. So you're on a short list. You're not competing with places 2 blocks away, 10 blocks away, 30 blocks away, or in another neighborhood. You're just competing with those other options. That, again, is a really important thing to think about. So here's a whole bunch of brands that, of course, we all know. They are not all competing with each other. Some compete with each other, right? McDonald's competes with Taco Bell and Chipotle, right? Dunkin' Donuts competes with Starbucks, right? But Waffle House doesn't compete with Outback. They're 2 totally different experiences. They cater towards 2 totally different problems, different day parts, all of that. Really important to keep that in mind. Ton of brands out there, tons of options, but you are only competing against a small number that are in your category. So then we get to D, right? D is for differentiation. Again, to walk through A, B, C, D again. A is for audience. Who has a problem that you're uniquely qualified to solve? B is for brand. Your restaurant is the solution to someone's problem. Competition, you're trying to figure out who else is trying to solve the same problem that you are. You're then in a category, and now you have to differentiate yourself. You have to separate yourself from the other options in that category, right? Really, this is a conversation about positioning. How do you convince someone to come to you versus another person? Again, to get really textbook again. In marketing textbooks, they talk about something called the value proposition. Value proposition simply means what makes someone choose one thing over another, right? All different reasons that think about your own habits, why you chose one pair of shoes over another, one brand of car over another, one restaurant to celebrate your anniversary over another, on and on. Everything you buy, you are faced with a decision. There are very few decisions we make where it's a non-decision. Very few, unless you're like out of gas and you've got to get the next gas station. You just picked it because it was the closest one. But for the most part, every time you buy something, you have a decision between one or the other. That's also true for the people that you take care of, for your diners. They have a choice between you and something else. This is how you start to differentiate yourself. You think, you answer this question. What are the stories only you can tell? And there should be hundreds of stories only you can tell. Now, even if you're saying, well, I just run a sub shop in some shopping center in the middle of nowhere, fine. You're probably the only sub shop in that shopping center. That's a story. That's a way that you can differentiate yourself from the other things in that. So let's say there's a sushi restaurant and a Chinese restaurant in that shopping center. You say, yeah, there are other dining options, but we're the only sub shop, right? It was the only restaurant owned by me. We're the only restaurant at the corner of the shopping center. We're the only place that serves this kind of dish. We're the only kind of place that's famous for this. We're the only place in town that serves this kind of pizza, this kind of... You're going to answer that a million different ways. And it starts with you, your people, your concept, your food, your location, all the ways that you are different from others, right? If you're the only sub shop here and the other ones are 2 miles down the road, well, for the people near you, you are more convenient. That's a story worth telling. What are the stories only you can tell? You answer that question, minimum, you line a piece of paper, and you say, what are 10 stories only you can tell? I do this with almost every one of my clients whenever they start with me. I say, you got to line them up. What are the stories only you can tell? Because one of the things that I think is killing restaurants right now is that we sort of float in this sea of sameness. That if I go to, an Irish pub, they're all pretty much the same. If I go to a sushi restaurant, doesn't matter where, what town, what market, whatever. I know I can get a rainbow roll, a spicy tuna roll, a yellowtail scallion roll. I know I can get some sort of sashimi platter. It's all the same until you differentiate yourself and say, we're not like any of the other sushi restaurants. Okay? Even in Manhattan, we've got all these omakase counters, right? So high-end sushi experiences. And they go anywhere from $125 to, $1,000 a head for the food. Well, what's the difference? You have to differentiate yourself. Why should I go to one or the other? Because if they're all the same, I'll just go to the cheapest one, or I'll go to the one that's closest, or I'll go to the one that's most famous, the one that I've heard about, the one that my friend told me about. You have to create differentiation. Yeah, food prices are through the roof. Yeah, labor is really difficult right now. That's not what's killing us. What's killing the industry right now is so much of what we do is similar or the same to everything else out there. And when a consumer doesn't understand the differences between one and the other, they're just going to make their decision based on. I always give this speech. I gave this talk back in November when I was at the leadership symposium. We talked all about the commodity mindset. All things being equal, right? This commodity mindset says all things being equal, a consumer will make their decision based on one of three criteria: familiarity, convenience, or price. That's how we choose a gas station. That's how we pick which flour we buy from the supermarket. That's how we pick any number of things. It doesn't matter. So I'll just pick the one that's cheapest, the one I know, or the one that's closest. And when you do that, it's a race to the bottom. So for independent operators, we can't get in that. We have to differentiate ourselves. So we make it so that people are willing to go a little bit out of their way, spend a little bit extra to get what we have because it's different. It's unique. You can't get it anywhere else. That's the thing that's going to save our industry and it's going to save all of our restaurants. It begins by answering this question: what are the stories only you can tell? So here we get into A, B, C, D leads to E. This is a picture of the dining room at Alinea, 3 Michelin stars out in Chicago, a wildly differentiated property and business owned by Nick Kokonis and Chef Grant Achatz. If you want to see a lesson in differentiation, how people stand out from the others in their market, they're a great example. Alinea is an extraordinary restaurant. Here we go. A, B, C, D leads to E, and E stands for everything. Here's the good part and the bad part. Don't be overwhelmed by it. Be buoyed by optimism. Everything you do is an opportunity. Every choice you make is an opportunity to show your customer, your potential diner, exactly who you are, what sort of solution you provide to their problems. Every choice you make matters, from the name, the lighting, the music, the signage, the food you serve, the way you plate that food, the prices you charge for that food, the service style, the uniforms, everything. Everything matters. Everything communicates something. So when we talk about marketing, everything we've just gone over is the stuff that everybody skips in our industry. This is the stuff the big chains do. Big restaurant groups do really well. Most independent operators skip right over this. You have to understand who you are and who you're for. You have to understand who has a problem that you can solve, how you solve that problem, who else is trying to solve that problem, and how you differentiate yourself from all those others so that you can say, choose me instead of all them because of the following reasons. The reasons are everything in your restaurant. The silver, the glassware, the bathrooms, everything matters. So that's that framework. Again, these 3 questions, right? 3 questions: how do we define marketing? What's the product? Who is it for? How do we reach them? The first 2 questions are answered in the framework I just showed you, that 5-step framework, the A, B, C, Ds of marketing, right? Now we need a framework for thinking about how we actually market our restaurants, the how. So how do we do it? We don't do it by just posting on Instagram 4 times a week. We don't do it by just sending a newsletter once a month to our list. We actually market using something I call the triangle principle. So, triangle principle, 3 sides to a triangle, 3 sides to marketing your restaurant: attraction, retention, and evangelism, right? Attraction, retention, and evangelism. These are the only 3 things you need to do to successfully market your restaurant. You got to figure out a way to get them in. You got to figure out a way to get them back. And you got to figure out a way to get them to evangelize for you, to go spark word of mouth, right? I'll take the stage. I do a bunch of trade shows and conferences and keynotes throughout the year. And I always ask, I say, show of hands, tell me, who knows what our most powerful marketing tool is, right? And a bunch of hands go up and they all sort of say back to me all at once. They say the most powerful thing is word of mouth. I say, great. So then tell me your word of mouth strategy. And they all look at me with blank eyes. I said, no, seriously, if it's the most important tool we have, what's your plan for it? And finally, usually I get like one person in the back raises their hand really sort of meekly and says, well, that's not how word of mouth works. It's just people come in, they have a great meal and we take care of them. And then they go tell all their friends and family. And that just doesn't work anymore. Yes, that probably does happen, but there's nothing we can do to make that happen, short of cooking a great meal and being really warm and gracious to them. But we can't affect whether they tell anybody. We can't affect whether they tell the right people. So what we have to do in each of these areas is think about what we want to happen and then put a plan into place to make those things happen. So I said, I'm a restaurant coach. I work with restaurant owners all over the world. To date, I've got over 100 people in my program enrolled across 3 different groups. This is one of the things we spend a lot of time talking about, and I'm happy to be introducing it to you here. Coaching works on a basis, or at least coaching with me works on a basis of systems and goals. We have to understand what we want to achieve, right? So in order to do that, we have to understand a baseline. Where are we now? We'll call that point A. Where do we want to be? That's point B. And what are we going to do to get ourselves from point A to point B? The things we do to get ourselves where we want to go is the system. System, just a fancy way of saying a repeatable set of actions. In order to get from point A to point B, I'm going to do the following things. And I'm going to measure my efforts and see whether I achieved my goal. We shouldn't be doing anything unless there's a goal attached to it. And that's where we get into a lot of trouble in marketing our restaurants, is we just do a lot of stuff because we know we have to do a lot of stuff and everybody tells us we should do a lot of stuff. Tell me if this sounds familiar, right? Somebody comes up to you and goes, hey, are you guys on TikTok? And you're like, no, we really don't have time for TikTok. And they go, oh yeah, well, you really should be on TikTok. That's where all the kids are, right? Like they're turning their nose up at you, right? Because you're not doing something. And then you suddenly feel pressure and you then find someone to open a TikTok account for you. And it's like, that's not how marketing is supposed to work. You have to think about attraction, which is customer acquisition. How do you raise awareness for your brand? How do you get people interested in your brand? How do you get people to come in for your experience? That's customer acquisition. How do you acquire new customers? And then retention. How do you identify the new customers? And what do you specifically do to get them to come back? And what do you get them, the ones who come back over and over, to come back with greater frequency? So if they're used to coming once a month, how do we get them to come once a week? That's customer retention. And then finally, evangelism is how do we get people to go spread the good word about us? Yes, they're going to tell their mom, fine. What do we do to get them to go, whoa, this is amazing. I got to take a picture of this. I got to take a video of this. I've never seen anything like this. I've never tasted anything like this. I got to take a picture. I got to shout about it. I got to brag about it. And then leave reviews and rave to other people the way that they rave to their mom, the way that they rave to you on their way out. It's fine. They rave to you. It's fine. They rave to their mom. What I'd prefer is if they rave on Google, is if they rave in their post on social media, because then that gets in front of 1,500 people. And if you do that 40, 50, 100 times a night, That gets in front of thousands and thousands of people every single night. We need a plan. We have to understand what we're trying to achieve and then what we have to do to achieve that. So I always talk about my 3-page marketing plan. It goes with the triangle principle. Take out 3 pieces of paper, write attraction on the top of one, retention on the top of the other, and evangelism on top of the third. And write everything you're doing to acquire new customers. Then write everything you're doing to retain those customers, to get them to come back. And then write everything you're doing to try to get people to go spread the good word about you. And if you're like most of my clients, you'll start doing that and you'll realize like, oh crap, we're really not doing much of anything in this area, or we don't really have a formulated plan over here. And that's when you go and you brainstorm with your partners, with your management team, and say, great, what are we going to do to acquire new customers? When you talk about acquiring new customers, that can be TV commercials and radio ads and bus stop and billboards. That can be direct mailers. That probably should be Google search ads. That probably should be Facebook and Instagram ads. That can be something as simple as, getting a booth at the local street fair or doing charity nights for the local Little League and the dance studios. Those are all ways to raise awareness for your brand and acquire new customers. So you need to understand that you should be doing all of them or some combination of them, and you need a system for how you do them. And then retention. What are you specifically doing to identify first-time diners and to get them to come back? Right? There's significant data. In fact, I just saw it. National Restaurant Association just put this out. Milagro Corporation just put this out. And Ovation, really powerful tool, just put out the same data. 3 totally different research reports, and they all put out the same data. It says 70% of all first-time diners will never return to the restaurant. Not because they hated it, simply because they got lots of other places to go. They're busy. 70% of all first-time diners will never come back. So the question becomes, what can we do to get them to come back? I think it begins by identifying them, and instead of saying, tell me how much you've heard this, right? A server comes over and says, hi, I'm Chip. I'll be taking care of you tonight. I say, have you guys been here before? And they say, oh, no, we've never been here. Like, oh, great. Welcome. We're glad to have you. And that's it. That's all we do when we're just told that this is somebody's first time in. What else can we do? Oh man, let me show you, give you a tour of the kitchen. Oh, let me bring you our specialty, our signature cocktail. Oh, let me give you a bounce back card. Here's my card. Here's the manager stops over. Here's my card. Free round of drinks next time you come in. Just give me a call. Make sure you ask for me. I'd love to see you again. Now we've jammed something in their hand that puts the thumb on the scale, right? Now we've incentivized them, tried to entice them to come back. Marketing is all about persuasion. So how do we persuade them that we're worth a return visit? Yeah, good food, good service, fine. But actually, by being deliberate, by getting them on our email list, getting their phone number and their birthday and their name so we can get them in our system, jamming a bounce back card in their hand. There's so many things we can do if we're just deliberate about trying to increase the retention percentage in our restaurant. And then finally, evangelism, right? What are the things people take pictures of, take videos of? What are you doing? Here's another thing I love to do. I get business cards made for all my clients. On the one side, it's their logo and a Yelp logo and a QR code, takes them right to their Yelp page. On the other side, it's their logo, the Google logo, and a QR code that takes diners to the Google My Business page. I tell the managers, I said, look for one table a night. The one table who is loving it. Tell all your servers, find me the one table who's loving it. Somebody's going to come up to you and say, hey, table 32, that's our table. They are loving it. The manager goes over with one of these cards and says, hey, what's going on, everybody? It seems like you're having a good time tonight. They're going to go, oh my God, this is so good. This place was amazing. I said, great. That's it. It looks like you guys are having a blast. I got a really big favor to ask you. I've got a card here. I want to just ask you, just tell the world everything you just told me. So QR code takes you to our Yelp page. If you could leave us a 5-star rating and review there. On the back, here's our Google My Business page. Again, just tell the world what you just told me. You're loving it. I know you love it. Go tell everybody why you love it and why you think they should come. That, more than anything else, will begin to change your business within the matter of weeks. Because if you get one of those every single day, you end up getting 30 5-star reviews on Yelp, 35-star reviews on Google every single month, it will outweigh the 3 stars and the 1 stars that you will inevitably get. And you get a bunch of people raving about you because they love it. You don't incentivize them. You don't give away. You just ask them. And they're going to do it because they are loving it and they're only too happy to do it. That's an evangelism technique. I'm personally inviting people and making it easy for people to go evangelize for me, to go spread the good word about what we're doing at this restaurant. I use evangelism very purposely because a restaurant grows the same way a church grows. A church doesn't grow because a pastor walks into town and shakes enough hands Monday through Saturday. A church grows because a pastor stands in the pulpit, delivers a sermon on Sunday morning, and moves people in the congregation, moves them so much that they're still thinking about it when they leave, when they go see their friends later that day, when they have dinner with their family later that night. And they say, hey, you know what? Today I was at church and the pastor said something that really affected me, really resonated with me. And the other person says, wow, that sounds really great. I didn't know that. I didn't realize that. Hey, maybe I'll come next week. That's how a church grows. It's the same thing with a restaurant. We just have to be deliberate. So all the stuff you do is fine, but you've got to understand what that stuff is for. Posting organically to social media might work for retention, might work for some evangelism. It doesn't work for attraction. If you're trying to reach new people, it doesn't work. You got to be doing social advertising. You have to have a social spend to target and reach new people. You have to got to make sure that we got the right tool for the job. So we're not trying to screw something in with a hammer. That's the power of this marketing triangle, this triangle principle, is we get really clear on what we're trying to accomplish and the things that we're going to do to accomplish that. And then we measure the results. If it works, we do more of it. If it works, we put more budget behind it. If it doesn't work, we scrap it, we go back to the drawing board, and we come up with new things. So that's that 5-step framework for understanding why we exist in a market, right? Why we deserve to belong. And here's the framework so that you can actually focus on the how, be intentional and deliberate about what we do, right? Begs the question, what's next? You got to go answer those 5 questions, the A, B, C, D, figure out what pain point you solve, why you exist. That's what you have to know. You have to understand why you exist and why anyone else should care that you exist. The people who need what you have will very much care that you exist. You just have to get really clear about it. And then you've got to build your 3-page marketing plan: attraction, retention, and evangelism. What do you do to acquire new customers? What do you do to bring them back? What do you do to get them talking? If you want further action, here's a QR code to my website. I told you I wrote a book. It's called The Restaurant Marketing Mindset. From now through the end of the year, I'm happy to offer this half price to everybody. It's half price, flat $5 shipping, whether you buy 1 book, 5 books, 10 books, 100 books. I know I'm going to lose my hat on this, but that's okay, because I hope you'll buy them for you and your managers and other restaurateurs that you know in your market. That's how we grow, right? A rising tide lifts all ships. When we get better, we pass along to other people. They will get better, and we will continue to grow. So that's the QR code. Takes you to my website. The books are all half price and just flat $5 shipping, whether you buy 1, 10, 100. I hope you get the book. I'm proud of the book. It links in directly with this presentation because the triangle principle, we spend a lot of time in the book and we go into greater depth. And again, the ABCDs of marketing is the first part of that book. The book is mercifully short. It's 200 pages. And I really think it will help you take the next steps. If anything I said here today resonated with you, then the book is going to be a how-to guide for taking the next steps forward. That's all I've got for today. I will stop my share. And hopefully this resonated with you guys. Were there any questions that were coming in? Are there any questions from me based on everything we've talked about?
Does anyone have any questions for Chip? Thank you so much, Chip. That was great.
Yeah, of course.
Please do scan the code or email me and I'll put you in touch with Chip, info@nisr.org, and grab his book. It's awesome. I was able to page through it at our event.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good. The book looks good. It feels good. And I'm really proud of the content in there. It was written specifically for independent owners and operators to help them market their restaurant without spending a fortune. Most of the stuff we can do is absolutely free. It just requires that we be intentional about how we go about it, that we be deliberate about what we're trying to accomplish.
Absolutely. And so you speaking about spending a fortune, we have a question. It's how do you decide your marketing budget?
It's a great question.
That's
So
what
the
I'm-
number you'll always hear, right, from like marketing gurus is 4%. You should be spending 4% on marketing. I don't know whether that's the right number. The right number is the right metric is that if you have to be able to measure your spend, and you have to get it to about a 4-to-1 or 5-to-1 ROI bare minimum. Meaning, I run an ad on Facebook. So here's something you could do. You run a traffic ad on Facebook, meaning you have an ad and it's got some promotion. Click here and get 20% off your next order at Restaurant XYZ. They click on the ad, they go to a landing page. It says, put in your email address and we'll send you a promo code for 20% off your next meal at Restaurant XYZ. The diner puts in their email address, hits submit, and it says, great, now go check your inbox. And then they go check their inbox and says, here's your 20% off code. They open it up and says, click here, place your order online and get 20% off using this promo code, or just show this in the restaurant next time you're there. And then they do that. They place the order or they show it next time they're in the restaurant. What happens is that we can measure every single step of that. I can see how many impressions, meaning how many people saw my ad. I can measure the clicks. I can see how many people clicked on the ad. I can see how many people entered their email address. So I'm growing my email list and I can see how many people did that. I can see how many people opened the email, that automated email that's sent to them. I can see how many people redeemed the code. And then finally, most importantly, I can track net sales, attributable sales. So I spent $300 on this and it generated $1,200 in revenue. I don't know, if I said, hey, give me $1,000 and I'll give you $4,000 back at the end of the month, I think everybody here would do it. That's what you want out of your marketing. You want to really, we talk a lot about ROI. We just have to get really clear about it. And we have to be able to measure. So if we use a promo code, we can measure it. If we're keeping receipts in the restaurant, even something as simple as that, we can measure it. We want to be able to look at the ad spend and then look at attributable net sales. And so if you spent $300 and that generated $1,200 in the month of December, why not up that budget to $600 in January to make $2,400 or $900 to make, and on and on and on. That's the most important part. Start small, make sure you can measure whatever spend you have. And when you find it gets to minimum 4-to-1 or 5-to-1 return, then you can increase your budget because you found something, you found a promotion that will work, right? That Facebook or Instagram ad that I just described, that's a strategy I recommend for all my clients. Take it, run with it, use it. It works. The power of it is that it can then grow. That's an acquisition tactic. And then you also need a retention tactic for when they come in. They say, hey, I just got this thing on my email. It says I get 20% off my meal. You should go, oh, great, my ad worked. Absolutely, I'll take 20% off. And I'm going to shove this card in your hand that gives you free round of drinks next time you're in, that as a retention technique. So if we've got an acquisition piece in place, we also need the next things as well.
Okay. Anyone else have a question for Chip before we depart today? Okay, Chip, that looks like that's it for today. Thank you so much, everyone. Chip Klose, we appreciate your time as always. Please take a look at his book, purchase his book. And if you have any questions, you can email info@nizer.org and I can put you in touch with him. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you, guys.